Imagine being told to eat a book. Not just any book, but a scroll directly from heaven itself. This extraordinary command wasn't from a strange dream, it was a divine instruction given to multiple prophets in the Bible, revealing one of Scripture's most fascinating mysteries. Our story begins with the prophet Ezekiel standing amid the glory of God's presence. The year is approximately 593 BCE, and the Israelites are living in exile in Babylon. As Ezekiel gazes upward, a hand extends from heaven, holding a scroll covered with writing on both sides. The words inscribed contain lamentations, mourning, and woes, messages of judgment that God wanted to deliver to his rebellious people. But instead of simply reading the scroll, God gives Ezekiel an unexpected command. "Son of man, eat what is before you, eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel." This wasn't just about consuming parchment, it was a powerful symbol of internalizing God's message so completely that it would become part of the prophet's very being. Ezekiel obeys, and something remarkable happens. As he takes the scroll into his mouth, he discovers it tastes as sweet as honey. Despite containing messages of judgment and sorrow, God's word proves to be delightful to the faithful prophet. This paradox teaches us that even difficult truths from God can bring spiritual sweetness when we fully embrace them. Centuries later, a similar scene unfolds in the book of Revelation. The Apostle John, exiled on the island of Patmos, receives a vision where a mighty angel holds a small scroll. Once again, a divine voice commands the prophet to take and eat the scroll. John experiences the same mysterious contrast. The scroll is sweet as honey in his mouth but turns bitter in his stomach. This bitterness represents the difficult nature of the message John must deliver. Like Ezekiel, he was tasked with proclaiming both hope and judgment. The sweetness in his mouth symbolizes the joy of receiving God's word, while the bitterness in his stomach reflects the weight of responsibility and the sobering content of divine judgment. These parallel accounts teach us profound lessons about God's calling and the nature of his word. First, they show that truly serving God requires more than surface-level engagement with his message. We must internalize his truth until it becomes part of our very essence. The prophets couldn't simply carry the scrolls, they had to consume them completely. The contrast between sweetness and bitterness reminds us that God's truth often carries both comfort and challenge. Just as a medical treatment might taste sweet but bring temporary discomfort as it heals, divine truth can be simultaneously delightful and demanding. The prophets found joy in receiving God's word, even when that word contained difficult messages they had to deliver. These accounts also reveal the intimate nature of God's calling. He doesn't merely hand his servants a message, he makes it part of who they are. Both Ezekiel and John had to physically consume the divine words, symbolizing how God's truth should transform us from the inside out. The image of eating heavenly scrolls points to a deeper reality. God's word is meant to nourish us spiritually. Just as food sustains our physical bodies, divine truth should sustain our souls. When we truly digest God's message, it becomes more than information, it becomes transformation. This mysterious act of consuming heaven's scroll reminds us that God often works in ways that confound human understanding. He might ask us to do things that seem strange by worldly standards, but these unusual commands always serve his greater purpose. The prophets' obedience in eating the scrolls preceded their effective ministry to others. Today, while we might not be asked to literally eat scrolls, the principle remains: God's word should be so deeply integrated into our lives that it shapes everything we say and do. Like these ancient prophets, we're called to internalize divine truth until it becomes part of our very nature, ready to be shared with a world in need of God's message.